BKP, good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show, and our guest now with us is Gilmer County Commission Chair Charlie Parris. Mr. Parris, how are you?
I'm good. How about you, Brian?
I'm doing great. I can't complain. Had a good weekend. A little bit of rain.
A little bit of rain.
Seems like we're having to get used to that.
I'm hopeful that the drought will be over.
I haven't heard the word drought in just a little bit here recently. Right. Let me ask you a question. Yeah. Once a month, we're going to try to do this if things work out for Mr. Parris. Once a month, can we come in here and do a little clip that we record and just a little state of the county, what some things going on. Mm-hmm. And you have brought several subjects this morning, and we were talking in the break. You wanted to start by discussing the county audit. And where do you want to go with that, Mr. Parris?
Well, we had in our work session last Wednesday, we had representatives from the auditing company to present to us their conclusions in the final audit, which we just received last week. It was a really good audit, I think, and there were a number of points that he made that, of course, I'm very anxious to share with everybody. And that is that they see that our financial position is improving substantially, and has been for 2-3 years, and we are continuing to improve. So that is always good news, I think. They mentioned that our revenues are up. I think that's part of our economy getting stronger and growing a bit. But they also mentioned that at the same time revenues are up, expenses remain flat or reduced, and I think that's extremely important that they recognize our efforts toward trying to hold expenses in line.
It's always good to recognize that revenue should exceed expenses.
That's
you got a
desirable thing.
You write the letter, I'll give you the stamp, and we'll send it to DC. But no, I mean it's always good when you can get the county in a position where you're making sure your revenues are exceeding your expenses. And I know, as silly as that sounds, but for those in our audience that are not aware with Gilmer County, that's not always been the case here.
That has not always been the case. And in fact, the last couple of budgets, not so much the last one as the one before that, have been very difficult because there was a time when we really didn't have balanced budgets in Gilmer County. We actually would budget more expenditures than revenues and kind of hope that worked out. Unfortunately, for the most part, it did, but we now have balanced budgets. We have something in the budget for 2017 that's new to us, and I'm very happy that we're able to do that. And for 2017, for the first time ever that I'm aware of, we actually budgeted a little over $300,000 to go into the contingency fund. Now, we've always hoped that we would have a little money left over at the end of the year that we could put into a contingency fund, but this year we're actually budgeting an amount, and I'm really happy to see that. We started out with about $80,000 or $90,000 in our contingency fund when I came into office in January 15. We will, with this budgeted amount, that puts us up to close to a little over $400,000 in contingency. But more good news on that particular front is that the final results on our 2016 budget show that we came in $650,000 under budget. So that $650,000 will be moved into the contingency funds. It's going to put us close to $1 million in a contingency fund that up until this point has been pretty much empty. So
now, what are some of the? Now, I know you brought up revenues versus expenses and several other things, but what are some of the highlights that the auditors do attribute a brighter or stronger financial situation that Gilmer County is? What are some of the things that they attribute to the strengthening position financially of the county?
Well, 3 things primarily. First, obviously, is the increased revenue.
Right.
The second thing is that they attributed this to a very close attention to cost and expenses. They were very pleased with the fact that we actually are holding our expenses either flat or actually reducing them a bit. So if you can have your revenues going up and you can somehow even, if you can hold your expenses flat or maybe even reduce them a bit, that's a good trend to have. The other thing is that they mentioned that how closely we're monitoring the budget throughout the year, because this is not something that you can budget at the first of the year and at the end of the year you try to figure out how you've come in. You got to stay on that budget all year long, and we are monitoring that budget very closely all year long, and that was one of the primary things that they mentioned in terms of being consistently in a better financial position year over year.
Well, I don't want to stay on financial position of the county too long, but I think in the last 3 years, it's been very important, because going back 6 and 7 years ago, a lot of things were taking place that were just financially. I mean, the county didn't know if they can pay the bills at the end of the year, and tax anticipation note ran out, the borrowing against it ran out, and exceeded the limits the bank would loan, and those kind of things were happening. That I don't want to put the people in fear, but those kind of things have been alleviated at this time, and they're in the right direction.
I think they have been. Our tax anticipation note for this year, we actually haven't started drawing against that at this point. Last year, we made our first draw on the tax anticipation note in mid-August, and we're able to do that a little bit further out every year. If we can ever get to about mid-September or so, we hopefully can do away with having to make a draw on that tax anticipation note completely. This year, we were hoping to make that a bit later, maybe around the 1st of September or so. It looks like it's still going to be mid-August, but there's a big difference this year from all previous years. Beginning with 2017, we took our state highway funding, the LMIG grant that we get every year to repave a number of roads in Gilmer County. It runs anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000 that the state gives us every year. And that's always been put into the general fund. So we've had that there to draw on because we don't start our paving until summer, mid to late summer. Effective in 2017, we moved the LMIG money, which is about close to $800,000 this year. We moved that out and put it into its own separate account. So when I say that we're going to be drawing against the tax anticipation note in mid-August, that's not any further out than it was last year, but it's with $700,000 moved out of the general fund into its own special account and taken out of that mix that we can use, that we have available. So when you consider that, the fact that we're still able to go to mid-August this year is a pretty substantial accomplishment, and we're real happy about that.
Let's change direction. Let's change direction, because there's several interests that people have out there. But roads. I mean, I will say, in 4 and 5 years ago, with the economic situation, the road department was pretty depleted.
Right.
And I'm not here to go into past administrations, just financially where the county. No, I understand. I really am. I'm just saying there wasn't enough revenue coming in. I mean, we know what the sales tax revenue situation was at that time. Right. So that being said, the road department in the last several years, explain to people what the road department, new equipment you've been able to add to impact the road department, plus the roads that we're paving right now and getting to.
Well, two things happened that really helped us out a lot with the road department. The first has been, as you're aware, the refunding of bonds. It's been sort of a continual effort for the last 2-3 years. That gave us a little over $4 million, most of which was taken up front to be used only for capital expenses. The road department has, for a number of years, been working with equipment that it was antiquated years ago. I mean, it was really bad. You've heard me whine and carry on about the dump trucks. So what we did this year was we have a separate capital budget, and that's something new for, actually, we began that in 2016. We did not have a separate capital budget, so now we do. So in the road department, with our new capital budget and with some of the funding that we got from the refunding of bonds, we've been able to get 2 new dump trucks. And keep in mind, when I say new, I don't mean off the showroom floor, but relatively late model, low mileage type situations. So we've been able to get 2 new dump trucks. We've got a new bulldozer, a new sweeper machine, a new compactor for when we're paving, and we got 1 new pickup truck for them this year. So this is all 2017 purchases. Now the pickup truck was leased, but with that one exception, every one of these items I just mentioned was a cash purchase. So we are not putting Gilmer County further in debt, and that's major because we don't need to be any further in debt. The road department has got an influx of functional equipment now. There's 1 or 2 other things that they need, but this was the important things that we got this year. We've also hired a few new employees in the road department, so we're looking forward to being able to maintain the roads better, faster, get around to the roads quicker than we have been in the past. I think people are going to be able to see a good difference there.
Well, you know, in the past, and again, in the past, one of the things I think when you came into office that needed some of the largest attention focused on it was the road department.
Right.
I mean, the road department needed attention with equipment, personnel to be able to keep up because there's hundreds of miles of county road that people are not aware of. How many miles of county road is there? That was your test. There you go. You didn't write that.
I don't have the exact figure. I can tell you it's around 500 miles.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I know it's somewhere around there.
Most of which is not paved.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
Any particular roads of question that citizens are concerned about that you wanted to highlight today?
I really wanted to highlight Ridgeway Church Road today because we've been trying for over a year now to get that road paved, the unpaved portion of it to get it paved. We're making progress on that. I think we're going to get it paved this summer. We're in our situation right now such that we only have 1 property owner that has not given us permission to pave, and of course all it takes is 1. But we're fairly confident that we're going to be able to overcome that, and we're looking at the latter part of the summer at being able to pave the unpaved portion of Ridgeway Church Road, and I know those folks out there are ready for that to happen, and we're ready to get that off our plate as well. So really looking forward to being able to get that accomplished.
You said when we started you wanted to make some comments concerning the tax assessor office in itself. Do you what comments would you like to make on the from the Department of Revenue audit there?
Well, if you recall,
and I do.
A couple of years ago.
That is one of them that I read forward and backward. I do. I remember this consent order.
Well, it resulted from an audit where we did not meet their minimum requirements, and they gave us it was about $174,000, I believe, in a fine. And of course, we objected to that. Had a little negotiations going on, and finally they gave us a consent decree, and there were a number of provisions in that consent decree. We had to, for instance, we have to submit the budget that we approve to the tax assessors to the state every year now to make sure that they feel like we're giving the tax assessors enough money. There were new vehicles involved. We had to purchase some pictometry, which will allow them to have overhead views of the property in the county. It was all very expensive. We hired additional people. We hired an outside consulting firm for them for a bit. The thing about that is doing all this cost us more than the $174,000 would have cost if we just paid the fine. But if we just paid the fine, that wouldn't have fixed anything, and we'd be facing that same situation now. So those were all provisions of the consent decree that we would do that. But the last provision was that we had to pass the 2016 audit. We had to come in within their parameters. And if we did everything else, which we've already done, And if we passed the 2016 audit, then they would forgive that $174,000 fine. If we did everything else and did not pass that audit, then even though we've spent all this money doing all the other things, we still have to pay that fine. So the good news is we got the results of this audit back a week or so ago, and we have passed. So it is my anticipation, of course, as with everything government, there's some wheels that have to turn, and it's not going to be for another month or two, but we should be declared as having met all the requirements of that consent decree, and we should be out from under that in another couple of months. And that the threat of that enormous fine has gone away. So I think that's really good news.
So there's $170,000 fine, possible fine, and I remember you had to meet certain criteria from equipment, and you had to get into the you had to get to their point by 2016. So you hit everything on there.
We have now officially hit
everything on there, and the county should no longer have to be concerned about the $170,000 fine. How soon will you know that? And I know you just said the state. I know it's the state, right?
Well, we actually know it already. I mean,
you already know.
We've gotten the word that everything is good, but we're still under the consent decree because having them tell us that we've met everything and having them sign off on that consent decree and say, okay, it's all done, it's two different things. It's government, and there's one department has to talk to another department. For instance, the audit department within the Department of Revenue is a completely separate arm of the other folks that we work with in the Department of Revenue. So there has to be that communication. There are several state departments that have to talk to each other and check things off. It'll take probably 3 or 4 more weeks for all that to happen, but we have already been told that yes, we have now met all of the requirements. So there is no reason in the world why that should not progress normally, and we should be out from under that consent decree in 1 to 2 months more.
Okay, let's go north of the county. Let's go what I call up 515 to Cherry Log.
Yes.
Cherry Log Fire Station. Now, the Cherry Log Fire Station, not to go backward in our short amount of time, we lost the lease on a building we had there. So where do we stand on the new Cherry Log Fire Station?
Well, I've been disappointed in how quickly we moved on that. We had a lot of issues in surveying and that sort of thing, how we would place the fire station, where we could put a driveway and still meet all the site requirements. And also I complicated it a bit because I did make a pledge to the people of Cherry Log that I would keep a 25-foot buffer around that property. And that complicated things a bit, but we're going to do that. We now have the plan in place. There were a number of property swaps that had to happen, and those have now all been completed, or at least all of them that matter in terms of being able to get started. So we actually put out a bid a few weeks ago for someone to clear the property and get it ready to actually put the building in place. We only got one bid on that, and it was more money than we could justify. So we had to reject that bid. So that put us in a position where now we're looking at the road department to come in and do that. And of course the road department is saying, well, we can't do it. We've got all this paving we have to do. They can do it if I'm willing to wait until the fall for them to do it. But we were originally scheduled to complete this thing in this previous March, and we haven't even taken a tree down yet. So I'm a little upset about that, and I don't want to wait until the fall when the road department is going to be able to get started on this. I want to get going now. So what's happened is the road department has put out bids to request somebody to come in and lay the asphalt for the roads that we will be repaving. Now they will do all the prep work, they will buy the asphalt. The only thing that this will be is somebody to come in and lay it down so that we can free the road department personnel to go out and start clearing this. So we're moving forward aggressively on that. The latest timeline is for the fire station to be complete sometime in November. I have heard some rumbling about weather and rain and pushing it back a little bit, but I'm not real high on that idea. So we're still going to try to get this thing done this year. I've made a comment to a number of our folks, and I'll say it publicly because I believe it sincerely, that the Cherry Log Fire Station is not going to become Charlie Paris's Clear Creek ball fields. We're going to get this thing done. So
that's a strong statement, so and you made it in front of me.
Lord help me. So you know I must be serious.
Yeah, I know. We're running short on time. We only got about 5 minutes, so I want to pick two more subjects. I want to go. How about? I feel like I'm on Jeopardy here. How about let's go with let's finish up with code enforcement, and then let's go to recreation. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're going to try to do this once a month, and we'll pick other subjects there, or whatever the topic of the month, whatever's most pressing. Mr. Paris come in once a month and give a report. But let's wrap up with code enforcement and recreation.
Well, the big thing in code enforcement is we have 20 flood control dams in Gilmer County. Now, Gilmer County doesn't own these dams, but with a previous agreement that's about 18 years old, with the Safe Dams folks, we're responsible for maintaining those dams. So over the past winter, our road department went out and mowed all 20 of these dams, cleared them off real well, took down all the trees that may be growing on the structure of the dam, and have really got these dams in good shape. Now, this is something that was required by the Safe Dams folks. They go out and inspect these things and they send us a report. And the report said they need to be mowed, they need to be cleared out, and there were a couple of them that had some debris out in the lake that we had to get rid of. So all that has been accomplished, and there are forms, of course, that this is government. So there's forms that have to go along with that to the Safe Dams folks, and those have all been submitted, and everything is fine in that regard. They did follow up, and I think this is a new law, at least in terms of the extent of it, and say that now we have to submit an emergency action plan for each one of these dams that says how we will respond in the event of a breach. So we're in the process of doing that. We've completed at this point 6 of them. These are very detailed plans, about that thick in a little project binder. So we've completed 6 of them, and we are working on the rest as quickly as we can. We have Lloyd Jarrett working on that. Lloyd is an engineer, has an engineering degree, so that's saving the county a bundle of money, because otherwise we'd have to go out and hire an engineering firm to come in and do this. So we're on board with that. As soon as that's done, we're going to be in really good shape with all of our flood control dams, and really happy about that. So that's the big thing in code enforcement. We have
recreation. No, I mean.
Well, we have several things going on in recreation. Everywhere I go, I have to mention that the golf course, according to anybody that you want to talk to, is in the best shape that it's ever been. Now, I'm not a golfer, other than I can tell you it looks pretty. That's all I know about it.
No, I mean, no. I tell you what, I hear that the golf course is in great shape. Never hear negatives, always hear positives on the golf course.
I haven't heard a negative in well over a year now. And in fact, everything that I hear from people who actually do go out and use the golf course, we have progressed from it's looking so much better to it's the best I've ever seen it. And we hope to continue that. Mike Bromby and his folks are just doing an outstanding job out there. Moving on from the golf course, we did get the parking lot at the Clear Creek ball fields paved this year. That was something that I really wanted to get accomplished, because we have a lot of traffic out there, and on a hot summer day when we do have the drought, you get about 2 or 3 cars going in there, and the rest of them couldn't see their way.
Exactly.
But that is paved now. We still got to get it striped, but we do have it paved, and I think that's a big plus. I have mentioned a couple of times, and I'll mention it again, that my proposal for the 2018 budget that we should start on sometime around mid-September or so is going to be that in our capital budget for for 2018 that we set aside at least $300,000 toward the construction of a new swimming pool. Now, we've got a lot of need for a swimming pool. We've got a lot of desire for a new swimming pool, and we've got a swimming pool that's over 50 years old. And we're keeping it going, but it's day to day. We can't just go out and build a new swimming pool because we can't take on any more debt. That's not acceptable. What we can do is put aside about $300,000 or so for the next 4 years, and in year 4 we should be able to build a swimming pool. A little over $1 million was the estimate that we got to build a new pool of a similar size to the one that we have now. Now, that will not be a covered pool, and covered is important to folks. I think it's more important to initially just get the pool. And so what I want to do is have engineering for a pool that we can go ahead and construct, but it'll be done in such a way so that we have the framework in place that we can come back later and then build a cover around it with minimum extra effort. So
the Gilmer County community pool has far exceeded the lifespan of community pools. That's just the bottom line. It has. And for the last several years, there's been a lot of money spent on patch efforts.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is tell the kids and the parents there won't be a pool this summer.
No,
you didn't want that, right? You didn't want that.
No.
You didn't want to be the guy to tell the kids there'd be no pool.
Not me. I pass that on to Travis or Dallas one if it comes to that. But no, it's. In fact, I think it was mentioned one time a number of years ago that maybe we need to just close the pool. And if I recall, that there were a lot of minds changed very quickly on that.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So it's not acceptable not to have a pool. But on the other hand, if we don't start making some plans for 3 or 4 years from now and how we're going to do it, I'm very much afraid that we're going to find ourselves 3 or 4 years from now with a pool that we can't keep going any longer. It's just finished. And we haven't set aside any funds for a new one, and where does that put you? So we have to do, part of government is planning, and we have to do some planning in terms of trying to be able to get that situation resolved.
I got 30 seconds. One last thing before you leave today, something maybe you wanted to share, wanted to make sure the people knew before we go. You got a final comment or something before we leave that you wanted to make sure?
Actually, what I wanted to make sure that people understood before we go is that we're going to do the Cherry Log Fire Station. So I've had an opportunity to make that comment. I will say that I am very pleased with the overall progress in the county, particularly financially. I truly appreciate all the work of our post commissioners because this is a collaborative effort. And I believe that we've got a commission that I won't say it's the best working commission we've ever had, but I can't imagine any commission where the 3 commissioners have worked together better than this particular one.
It functions. It's very important. It functions, and
that's critical, yeah.
We'll leave and make sure I have this correct. The Cherry Log Fire Station will not be Charlie Paris's Clear Creek ball fields.
It will not be.
Okay, I thought so. And that's it. And we want to thank Commission Chairman Charlie Paris of Gilmer County for joining us today for this update, and we hope to do this once a month, and we'll let you know ahead of time when the update will be. So if you want to send some questions that we can ask the chairman, we'll be glad to do that. Again, thank you, Mr. Paris. You have a nice day. And we're going to take a break, and when we come back, LJ Police Chief Edward Lacey will be with us, and he has returned from Israel in counterterrorism training. I'm interested in this next subject, and I think you will be too. Take us a break, John.
The 17% savings are real.